think it all comes down to to one aspect. We would like to transport the emotional content of string quartet playing that might also be music and even a form of an ancient time into our days. And we feel that the emotional content of string quartet music should be transported and should touch people of today. Well, first of all, of course, I guess it's the great dream of probably all string quartets, as it was ours. And it is a cosmic challenge to do all these quartets that describe such a huge arch in development and in a life. And so on the one hand, you have this great dimension of a huge universe which contains everything, which contains every kind of possible human emotion. And on the other hand, it is very, very touching and private. In a certain way, I have the feeling Beethoven used his quartets to convey his most intimate feelings. It just gives a totally different picture of Beethoven as a human being than what you would get if you just play one or two, as we usually do in a season. And by playing all, we have the feeling that we're so close to a human being that opens up his personal diary where he writes all of his emotions and lets us share so much of his privacy, like we would be roommates in a certain way. So there's this really touching private element which totally fascinates us and makes us so grateful to be able to do that beyond the huge universal challenge of all these wonderful works. The intimate, emotional aspect of playing Beethoven, I think, is just a great example in Opus 130. Let me just mention the Cavatina, which is probably one of the most beautiful and touching slow movements one can imagine. And certainly one of these movements you would like to take on a solitary island, just on your own. But besides that, there is this absolutely stunning passage in the middle of the piece, which is not very long, where Beethoven writes an accompaniment of triplets in the lower voices, and the first violin sort of sobs in an improvised manner with some kind of a remarkable insecurity, losing faith in everything, losing self-esteem. Beethoven writes one of the most exotic indications in the music. In German it's called beklemmt, which probably means insecure, but in a very physical, cramped manner. And it just means that there's a person who's so vulnerable that he loses the ability to talk into a line. He's just able to say single words, and this vulnerability which Beethoven shares with the player and thus the audience is amazing. It's probably one of the most amazing aspects of 130. I do think it changes everything to play Opus 130 with the Grosse Fuge in the end instead of the movement which Beethoven's publisher basically forced him to compose later. Because the dramaturgical development of the whole piece is totally contrary if you let a piece end in a huge disaster, if you add a universe of its own in the end, like a culmination, like a synthesis of everything, or if you end with a pretty jolly dance movement, it changes everything. And for us it was much more exciting and dramatic, of course, to play Beethoven's initial artistic idea. That's why we recorded it this way. The Grosse Fuge is probably one of the most modern pieces which was ever composed, which no one understood at that time. I think it's great to always remember the fact that every music, also the established music, was contemporary and modern and bizarre and difficult and new at one certain point, and we tend to forget that, and I think in Beethoven we probably have the best example for that.